What's up, YouTube? We are back on the Allis Chalmers project today. Again, this is starting to drag out a little bit. I apologize, but it's the time of day we're going to start working on the control valve for the power steering. So, we're just going to burst right into it. I believe this seal on back is bad. It might be another cause of my leaking issues that I have. So, we're going to start by taking this off. Probably not going to rip it down all the way because there are some very sensitive, tight tolerance parts in here that I would prefer not to smash. So, let's get into it. Step 1, 2 flathead screws. We're going to take the back cover off and replace the oil seal. Just a little lip on here, it looks like. Make sure that gets all cleaned up. A lot of gunky gunk in there. So I'm going to try and do this without taking the spool off because I believe this nut is staked in place. I might be completely wrong and you can't do it this way, but bear with me. So what we're going to do now is the same thing, take the front cover off. Again, 2 flathead screws. These screws aren't that tight, but they don't have to be because this is all held on by the mounting bolts when it's screwed up to the front casting. Next, what we're going to do is try to remove the adjustment screw. Before we do, we're going to want to mark it because it sets the end play, and the end play is what controls the power steering itself when you actually turn the wheel. So we're just going to put a little mark on it. Alright, here we go, reassembly. We have the needle bearing still installed. We have the needle bearing installed in the front cap. This is where we start. So we're going to take our worm gear shaft and put the front cover onto the bearing surface. And we want to make sure that it both can slide in and out as well as spin. Next, thrust washer, the smaller one, followed by the bearings, followed by the large washer. And we have new O-rings on that entire assembly. Next, being careful not to lose our plungers, we're going to flip this upside down and set the worm shaft onto the main valve body, which has the spool in it already because I did not remove it. Of course, making sure everything is very clean. Alright. Now we put the cap screws in to hold the front cover on. And these don't have to be terribly tight because they are flathead screws, so if you tighten them down too hard, they're going to be really hard to get out. And the whole stack's going to be held in much tighter by the screws that fasten it to the front support casting. Okay, we're on the back side now. Everything's clean on our large thrust washer. New O-rings again. Put that on. Ball bearings. Small washer. Now, as you can remember, I took a lot of thorough pictures of this retainer nut. And that is because I do not have a socket long enough to go from here down to here to put onto my torque wrench, as the book recommends torquing it to 5 foot-pounds and then backing it off 2 or 3 flats. So if you do have a long enough socket, that's what you should do. If you don't, what I'm going to do is set this notch back to where it was based on how many threads I counted and where it was in relation to the flat. Alright, I've got my slot set up right about where it was before based on thread count and relationship to the slot. And as you can see, there's some play in that. That's what controls the spool and the valve. Oil seal time for the back cover. National Seals 470680. This one I bought off of, I forget where I ordered this from, but as you can see, 1997. It's been sitting around for a while. But the seal looks good. And the right size. So what we're going to do next is just press that seal into the rear cover casting so it is flush with this surface. Alright, now the O-rings on both of these larger thrust washers on the outside seemed a little large. That is the size you're supposed to go with those, so I just went with it. Front one went on fine, so. A little bit of oil on the O-rings. Alright. And now we're going to put this on. Nicely done. I'm just going to use a screwdriver to help get that O-ring pushed into its groove, because it's, like I said, it's a little on the big side. Alright. And same as the other side, it's basically temporarily secured by 2 flathead cap screws. Control valve is on, ready to rock. I can feel air coming out of the ram. Everything is working good. So that means the last thing we have to do now is put the bottom cover on, and this unit's all sealed up other than the hoses, but that's another story. So all we're going to do now, we're going to get the bottom retainer plate on, and then we're going to do a check to make sure that these lugs, which are the steering stops, line up with the lug on the gear. Okay, so front and back two screws are in. Those are the only two that hold this retainer plate in until we put the bottom part on. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that now or after I get on the tractor, because if you go back to the disassembly video, I took that off first. I might put this all on as one piece this time. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. Now we're going to connect the hoses. I gotta remember which ones go which way. So it was right after that point that the camera started acting up, and I thought I had video of putting this all back together, but it didn't save. It said it did, but it didn't, so I apologize. So what I'm going to do right now is do my best to go through the rest of the assembly process. So the hookup of the lines from the control valve to the ram, the front port on the control valve goes to the rear of the ram, and the rear connection point on the control valve goes to the front of the ram. So back to front, front to back. Then after that, I took the whole unit, casting and all, and that just bolts on with the 4 large bolts to the side frame rails. Then I brought the front axle in, slid it into the pin, lifted the back end up, got it hooked into its rear connection point, and connected the tie rods. Then after that, it was just a matter of putting the radiator, rehooking that up, sheet metal, and the generator on. By the way, I forgot, you're going to want to fill it up with good old common 10W30 motor oil. Unless you're in a really cold climate, then they recommend going with a slightly thinner oil. And you just fill it up through the breather, and you want to have 5 quarts or just above the gears of oil in there. That'll do it. Again, I apologize that it didn't film, but like I said, this whole thing's gonna get tore down again, so I'm definitely gonna be making videos of that then. In the meantime, I hope that helps for now, guys. Despite the fact that the radiator doesn't hold coolant now, the power steering worked flawlessly in the 10 minutes I had it running before the radiator went. So I hope this video has helped you guys if you're trying to redo the steering on the front of your Allis D17. It's pretty straightforward once you get down to it, and once you get it apart, it's a very simple, robust system. So have a good one, everybody. Stay tuned for more tractor content and other homestead and farming content. And thanks for watching.